and a sandwich lease. A sandwich lease is what I'm looking for, either that or getting a deed. I love sandwich leases because I'm getting a monthly cash flow, and I've probably got a chunk up front, and I'm probably getting a chunk back if and when my buyer ever cashes me out. At the very least, I'm getting debt pay down. Is there any reason why you guys can't go out and get yourself 20 or 30 free houses and just collect rent and let the tenant buyers pay them down until the mortgage balances get so low, one day you wake up and you got $2 or $3 million worth of equity in properties that you never bought to begin with? What's wrong with that? Not a thing. You can buy them anytime you want. And I'll tell you guys, this is a writer downer. If you think you're gonna stay in the deal, especially on these properties that are highly leveraged, why don't you lease option them for the full term of the loan, not 10 years? And I promise you, the seller will lease option it to you just as easily for that as they will 10 years. 10 years is crap I made up. I made that up to protect the seller. But when I'm staying in the deal, I'm not worried about protecting the seller. I'll protect the seller. I'll make sure they get paid. So somebody owes 27 years on a loan, and they owe $20,000 more on the house than it's worth. Lease option it for the entire 27 years. So now in 27 years, what's owed on the house? Nothing. Now what's your purchase price? Nothing. And at the very least, you sell it somewhere along the way, you've got a lot of equity that you built into it. Again, our goal, stay in the deal, not get out of the deal.
Ron, almost every deal that we've done, we've gotten the remaining term on the loan.
Yes.
So we're not giving our tenant buyer a balloon payment on it either. We're putting them in for the full remaining term if we're assigning it. And if we're staying in the middle, we're putting a balloon in it though.
You know what? I know you told me that. And I really got to thinking about that. And I said, I don't want to put these sellers in a position to where they're giving over control of these houses to tenant buyers we don't even know for 25 years. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if a tenant buyer takes control of this house and they can't, I know in 10 years the debt's going to pay down, so the equity is going to come back, which is our pitch to the seller. I also know that the value probably is going to go up. So there's plenty of time there for anybody, regardless of their credit, to get it cleaned up and get ready to buy way before the end of that 10-year period. I figure if they can't do it in 10 years, they don't need longer than that. And guess what? The buyers don't care. 10 years is a lifetime to them. They don't, that's so far off, they don't even care about the rest of the deal, at least in my experience. So I put the 10 years in there to protect the seller. Again, though, that's because I wasn't staying in the deal. All right, let's move on. We're going to take a break here shortly. Is the lease option business worth your time? Probably not. Probably not. Probably shouldn't give up your day job. You've heard testimonies from the Ioannidis about how many deals they do. Incidentally, do we expect you guys to be doing the amount of deals they're doing? No, I do not. And I'll tell you why I do not. Because they're not normal. They're weird. And I'll tell you why they're weird. They're weird because they take action and get shit done. And I find that a very rare commodity in our society today. I tell you, I'm not kidding you. Most people just will not do what it takes to get where they're at and go through the pain that they went through. And I can tell you for a fact, you're not going to get where they're at without going through pain. It's going to take time. It's going to take grief. You got hurdles to overcome. You got people trying to steal your dreams. You got people coming at you, tell you how foolish you are. You got cash flow problems from time to time. You got all these things that are inherent in any business, and most people just aren't strong enough to get through it. They cave in first chance they get and go hang around with whiners and losers and make all the excuses why it's all Obama's fault. So they are weird. They're not normal. However, do you need to do the kind of deals they're doing to make this thing worthwhile? Huh? What if we just set our goal to do one of these deals, one of these control with ownership deals a month? How about that? With a profit of, say, $5,000 in it. Would $5,000 a month make any dent in anybody's budget in here? How many of you could use an extra $5,000 a month? All right. And of course, you all know what's going to happen when you start getting the $5,000, don't you? Yep. Greed will immediately set in. And you'll be convincing yourself, well, if I can do one, I can do two. And self will agree. When you and self have this discussion and you realize how little bit of pathetic work you put in to get the $5,000. Well, maybe I can put in a little bit more pathetic work and not do anything a little bit more and get $10,000. And next thing you'll know, you'll be doing 2 a month. Or do you think that they actually started first day out of the box doing 10 a month? No, absolutely not. So you're going to progress at your own pace, and this is worth whatever you say it's worth. If you get serious about it, it's worth a lot of money. They're doing 7 figures. They're not the only one doing 7 figures. But however, 7-figure producers are in the minority, not the majority. Because what it takes to get 7 figures is in the minority, not the majority. You're going to decide. I can tell you right now, the more you get other people to do the work for you, the more you're going to likely to make. The more you try to do yourself, the less you're going to likely to make. I can absolutely guarantee you that. And that's the hardest thing for me to get people to do, is to turn loose of all the garbage that they want to do themselves. And some people use the excuse, well, I can't afford a VA. Well, baloney. You can't afford not to have a VA. Because if you don't have a VA, you're doing all the minutia crap and you're not going to make any money because you're so busy doing the minutia. Can't afford not to have a VA. I don't care if you have to give up cigarettes. VA, cigarettes, VA. Probably live longer too. No? Got to have a VA. Now, I want you to just do some timing with me here. You get out of here, you generate a FSBO. Don't care if you have to go home and call them yourself, heaven forbid. You generate a FSBO. Somebody says, yeah, please come out and lease option my house from me. Okay, you call them on a Monday. You go out on a Monday night or a Tuesday. You have a contract signed on a Wednesday. On a Thursday, you're putting it in on Craigslist and doing all the stuff we're going to talk about tomorrow. By the following week sometime, you're probably going to have a tenant buyer that you want, that you'll accept. It's got $5,000-$10,000. 2 days later, the attorney's going to be closing it and you're getting a check. This ain't rocket science, and it's not hard, but it's hard if you've never done one. I can tell you one thing for sure. The second one's easier than the first one, and the 10th one's easier than the second one, and the 20th one won't even stir up the molecular structure in your brain. But we got to get you to that first one first. And that's the hardest deal you're ever going to do, is that first one. And of course, some of you will never do that first one. Because the dream stealers, minutia, are just plain procrastination will get in your way. Or maybe your spouse. Or Obama. Okay, what can you make with the Acts plan? I don't know. Just start with one deal a month. Prove to ourselves, get our shut-up check. Everybody knows what a shut-up check is. By the way, please make sure you make a copy of that first check you get. And if the attorney wants to wire you the money, don't let them. Tell them, no, I want a check. Because you can make a copy of it. And you ought to put that check on the wall in a frame and call it shut up check. And then when people come and sit with you in your office and they start, wah, 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 hey, look up there. What's it say above that check? There's the preponderance of evidence that I'm right and you're wrong, moron. Get out of my face and go away. Okay, page 18. Obviously, you know the advantages to the seller. They get out. You know what they really get? You know what the seller gets? What's the biggest advantage? They get peace of mind. They no longer have this animal dragging them down. And some of you in that position right now, you understand. You get out of bed, all you can think about is, what am I going to do with this house? This thing is killing me. I can't take this anymore. And remember, if you're in contact with a seller, it's likely because they advertised they wanted to sell it. And your VA called that ad. So they want to sell it. I mean, they're not in a mindset to sit in this house for years and wait it out. They want out. For some reason, they got to get out. So they have all kinds of advantages to let you come into their life. And here you come, making them an offer to basically take over their debt, take over all responsibilities of their house, and put somebody else in it that ultimately will cash them out sometime in the future. And in fact, I'm probably in here somewhere, but let's examine the alternatives of somebody that's over-leveraged on their house, just for the record. Number one, they can stay in it and wait it out and keep on making payments for years till the equity catches back up. Right? Right? And will some of them do that? Yes, some of them will do that. Very few, but some of them will do that. All right, number two, they can just walk away and let it go to foreclosure. And that will solve their problem, won't it? Debt gone. Of course, credit gone with it, but debt's gone. Will a lot of people do that, and are a lot of people doing it? Millions are doing that. And will some of the people that you come in contact with, would they rather do that than be bothered with another way? Yes. So, let them go. Nothing you can do. Third, they can do a short sale, which means they have to list it with a realtor, and then the realtor's got to accept the listing when it's over-leveraged. Then the realtor's got to find a buyer for some price that can get qualified for a loan, and then the bank's got to accept that number. So the odds are really stacked against them on a short sale. And I have yet to find a seller who doesn't know that. And then here comes number 4. Well, here's this person coming into my life offering to lease option my house from me, take over the responsibility for the repairs after the first 30 days, and doing a long-term deal, and I can get out, my credit will be saved, and I can forget about the house, and at least I think I can, and I can get my peace of mind back. It's your seller's decision to take whatever option on that list they want, and I'm telling you, it's not a hard thing to convince them to take option number 4. And in fact, you know they're going to take option number 4 before you ever make an appointment to go to their house, because it says so in my scripts in this book. You're going to get the positive answers you need, or you're never going to make an appointment to see a house. Advantages to you, your buyer, man, you can just imagine. They get into this house, all they need is a little bit of money, they got a payment that they can afford, and the American dream of home ownership comes back. And of course, you know the advantage to you, easy money, no risk, no repairs, no due on sales, and we've discussed all of that. Option advantages to the seller on the next page. Seller gets cashed out with no risk on their part. Think about it. They're optioning the house to you. You're putting your time and your effort into it. You're aggressively selling it because you don't get a nickel unless you do. They're not writing any checks, and nobody's living in the house, and it's an all-cash sale. And in fact, my pitch to the seller when I'm optioning the house, and they say, well, how do I know you're going to sell my house? I answer, you don't. I don't. But I don't get paid unless I do. In fact, I'm devoting my time, my money, and my resources to get people in your house. How many people like me would you like to have out there at no cost to you? And that's the pitch. And of course, advantage to you is you option it, there's no risk, great big check if you find buyer. Of course, if you don't find buyer, you don't get paid. And what's the worst can happen? What's the worst that can happen? I lose my $100. That's the worst that can happen, and whatever marketing money that I spend. All right? In fact, on the next page, and I got to tell you guys, this option thing is just totally underused. It's totally underused. But it literally could be an entire business within the business. You know, like Axe is a business within the business? This option thing could be as well. What if one just consciously decided to focus on higher-end houses, especially free and clear higher-end houses? Do you know you can rent a list of houses that are free and clear? You all know that? MelissaData.com, Donnelly, R.L. Polk, all the list brokerage services can get you a list of houses that are free and clear in any zip code you want them in. Cheap, 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 like about a nickel a name. You can target free and clear houses with yellow letters, which we're not going to cover in this package, but with yellow letters, and get them calling you. And now, You can either create seller financing terms, and then when you hear, well, now I'm going to cash out or nothing, okay, now what's the least you would take? And if you can get a big spread in them, you kick into the option mode. What if you focused on an area of town and you had 2 or 3 of these things under option contract at one time with big spreads in them, nice houses, nice neighborhoods, and you did a marketing campaign to attract those kind of buyers, and you just took them from house to house to house to house to house? Which one do you like? Well, I don't like that one. I don't like that one. Okay, I love this one. All right, sign here. If I had 3 or 4 of them under option and only one of them sells and I get 6 figures, compare that to what realtors do. Compare that what they do. And you get good at selling high-priced houses and knocking down 6-figure checks every time you do, that's probably where your focus is going to be. And are you going to learn how to sell 6-figure houses while you're doing it at no risk? Yes or yes? You're going to learn how they think. You're going to learn what it takes. You're going to learn what people say. You're going to learn what rejection you get and why you get it. And you're going to learn also what not to option along the way. It'll take you a little while. But man, how many $100,000 to $300,000 checks do you got to get a year to convince you that options are a real business? All right, I've covered the option criteria. All right, this one's big on page 22. Do I need a real estate license? This is a discussion we must have. How many of you in the room have a license? Okay, for those of you listening, that's about 8 people in the room have a real estate license. And for all of you listening to these tapes right now, I know many of you are licensed. All right, if you are licensed, then obviously your choices are, do I get my broker involved or not? Now, I was licensed once. And when I found out I had to go do 72 hours more training over a 7-day period to keep my license, that was the end of my license. That was all I could do to get through the first so-called training. Now, you guys with a license know that you learn a lot of cool stuff in real estate school, except, of course, how to sell real estate, or pretty much anything with the whole process of being an agent. But you do get to learn how many square feet's in a mile and how or in an acre and how many feet's in a mile and all of those kind of cool stuff, which does not do you any harm. Don't get me wrong. However, if you have a license, that means that you have responsibilities as a licensee. And of course you have to disclose when you have a license to both buyer and seller at the point of a meaningful relationship that you have a license. I can tell you right now, nobody cares, but you still have to disclose. The fact that you have a license is not going to cost you one single deal. What you don't have to do is make a big deal out of it. Sometimes I see realtors on the phone. Hi, I'm a realtor. Before we go any further, I must disclose I'm a realtor. No, you don't. You have to disclose you're a realtor at the point of a meaningful relationship. And to me, that means it's about the time I'm about to write a contract for both buyer or selling. And disclosing, big deal. I put right under my name, a licensed real estate agent. And you complied with the rules. Now, you realtors know what you got to do, but what I need to discuss with you is, you've got to decide where you want to be in your relationship with your broker. If you have a license, your broker is responsible for you. And you cannot go out here and do business without your broker being aware of it because you're licensed. So you've either got to have clarity with your broker that all these deals I do on my own, you're not a part of because they do not involve any kind of money going through your accounts or anything from your office. And if your broker says fine, you're okay. If your broker doesn't say fine, then you got a decision you got to make, as you either got to get another broker or put your license inactive, one of the two, or go do deals behind your broker's back and hope that he or she never finds out about it, which obviously is not a good choice. So you got to get clear with your broker about your license before you can do real estate activities. Now, if you have a license, you may choose not to lease option it from the seller, but if you choose not to lease option it from the seller, now you're in the same ballpark us non-licensees are, and that is you're acting as you're not in the same position because you're acting as a realtor. So here's the long and short of this. If you do not have a license, you cannot solicit for buyers for this property until you have it under contract with the seller. You either must have an option agreement or a lease option agreement or a purchase and sale agreement, or you cannot go find buyers by law without a real estate license. Now let's say I'm a realtor or an agent, and I go make a deal with a seller. Well, if I do not put it under a lease option contract where I control it, now I'm acting as an agent, which is okay because you're licensed, but I can promise you it's not okay with your broker, unless your broker is getting part of the deal or somehow knows that you're doing this transaction. Do you understand what I'm saying, I hope? You're either, if I were you and you have a license, I would get a lease option agreement signed by the seller anyway and act like you don't have a license, yet disclose that you do and not bring it into your broker's business. If you have a lease option agreement signed by the seller, you have an equitable interest in the property, you have the right then to find a tenant buyer for your property. Hello? If you do not have an agreement signed by the seller, you do not have the right to find a buyer and put buyer and seller together. That is one of the 7 functions requirement of a license. Guys, let's face it. What we do is pretty much the same things realtors do. But we control the property, they do not. We have to have an equitable interest based on an agreement. So I'm going to say this again. Do not even solicit buyers until you have a signed agreement with the seller. There are a couple of states. In fact, I'm going to make my big disclaimer, my big CYA right here. You should check with your attorney in your state on this licensing issue and be clear in your own mind before you do this axe deals. And the cautionary measure there is, please make sure your attorney understands what the heck you're asking. If you go into your attorney and you say, can I go find buyers for this seller here and get paid a fee, what's he going to say? Yeah, you've got to remember to tell him the part that I'm going to go lease option this property from this seller. Therefore, is there any problem with me finding a tenant buyer and assigning that lease option agreement? And by the way, if there is, it's no different than getting a deal with the bank on property and assigning that agreement. Signing an agreement is assigning an agreement. The state where there's 2 states that I know of where you really need to check it are Kentucky and Colorado. Something in my mind triggers the fact that you have to have a license to sell an option. However, we're not. I don't know. You're going to have to get your attorney to help you define what that means. So, check with your attorney. And if your attorney has a problem with it, you got 2 choices: either get another attorney, or don't do acts. Or, actually, a third choice, get a license. And in fact, people ask me all the time, should I get a license? And my answer is yes or no. I don't know. I will tell you it won't do you any harm. You will learn some good stuff in real estate school as long as you're not going there to expect to learn how to make any money. If you do have a license, it does get you access to the MLS. It gets you keys to get into the houses. You want to do the bank-owned properties. And I'm telling you right now, it puts you dead center of all kinds of these axe deals. Realtors are a great source of axe deals. Everybody they hang around doesn't know what to do with these over-leveraged houses on the seller side. And then think about all the buyers that come through, all your friends in your clique that can't get qualified but have some cash. So as a licensee, you're dead center of all of that. So there are advantages to having a license. And disadvantage is that you have a license. You just have to disclose, plus you have to go to school. And of course, you're going to have to find some broker to hang your shingle under when you have a license. Incidentally, the term realtor, there's no such thing as a realtor. I hear that all the time. There's no A in the middle of that. It's realtor. And to be a realtor, you have to be a member of the National Association of Realtors. Just because you get a license, you're not a realtor. They want to suck fees out of you. Then you're a realtor. Just a tidbit on that. Okay. On example 6, when you change the terms, are you taking control of the property using owner financing? Then with the buyer, you find, are you doing a lease option with them? If that's the option agreement deal you're talking about, I have an option agreement to buy it in the beginning for $500,000. Then I go out and I find a buyer to put up $200,000. So I'm going to get a owner financing contract, purchase and sale agreement from my buyer. Then I'm going to go back and get an owner financing contract from my seller and tear up the option agreement. So I control it. And if I can't get the agreement from my seller and they don't agree, I'll just go back to my buyer and say we can't do it. Got to have cash or nothing. Will putting a tenant buyer in a house trigger the higher property tax rate? Absolutely not. If nothing transfers down at the courthouse, nothing changes on property taxes. That's the answer to that. Okay? I forgot to tell you about these questions, that they need to be in one-sentence format, not in essay form. Think I'm kidding? Okay. With a free and clear deal, won't it be difficult to get reasonable monthly payments? I don't understand. Who wrote that? Me. You? Reasonable monthly payments with the seller or with the buyer? With the seller? No. I asked the seller, what's the least you could take per month? And if I don't like their answer, it starts creeping up towards the next deal. If I like their answer and it's down low, then we got script in here for that. Then I'm going to probably stay in it. What is the play on this deal? In his case, $200,000 house with 10 years, $1,600 a month. The play on that one is probably an axe, because $1,600 a month is pushing the top of the envelope. Well, now, if it's zero interest, though, I'd stay in a deal. If I got a $200,000 house and I'm paying $1,600 a month going toward the principal, no way I'd assign that contract. I stay in that deal. For the high-priced, nice house, using your house on the water example, how much of the $200,000 fee is credited to the tenant buyer as a down payment? We're not doing a tenant buyer in that deal. We're buying it with owner financing and we're selling it with owner financing. There is no tenant buyer. The buyer who's buying it with owner financing is going to bring in $200,000, $50,000 that's going to the seller, the rest is going to me. Legally, with an axe deal, are you tied to the house for the time before the tenant buyer exercises the option? Absolutely not. The minute you assign that contract, you have no more interest in the house, you're out, it's over, case closed, unless the seller calls you up and say, I got a problem, would you help me solve it? Do you actually close on the house with owner financing, $800 a month payment, before you have a tenant buyer? Yes, you do. Well, no. I don't have to close the purchase until I get the tenant buyer, and probably won't if there's a down payment involved. But then I'll close them simultaneously, or it doesn't matter. If I want to put up the down payment myself and close it, put tenant buyer in a few days later, I can, or I can do it all simultaneously using the tenant buyer's money. Would you repeat the part about no payments for 3 months and you keep the payment? Well, on axe deals, we always negotiate that the payment from the rent from the tenant buyer starts the 30 days after we close the lease option with the buyer. However, the tenant buyer brings the first month's rent to closing and gives it to the attorney, who then gives it to us. So we get the assignment fee plus the first month's rent. In the case of the 3 months, I think you're talking about if I'm buying it with owner financing. If I'm buying a property with owner financing, I always put it right in my terms, right in my contract, that my first payment will begin 3 months after closing. Now, I am obligated to make that payment because I'm closing it, then the 3-month window starts. But that gives me 3 months. If I find my buyer or tenant buyer within the first month, then I get 2 months payments coming in with no payment going out, is what I meant there. Because when I sell, I want the payment. If it's rent, I want the first month's immediately. If I'm selling with owner financing, then their first payment is 30 days later. Either way, I don't have a payment underlying to make. When you something on a free and clear and mark it to listedata.list, do you ask for houses that have been recently listed? No. For crying out loud. You guys, let me make it very clear. If the house is listed, you're out. We are not interested in listed houses. If its house is listed, one of two things have got to take place. Either you got to get the seller to ask the realtor to release the listing, which means they are not under obligation to do so, or you got to wait the listing out, or somebody's got to pay the commission. We do not go behind realtors and try to steal deals from them. Actually, they have a contract. If you do that and you get caught, you're probably going to get sued for their commission and lose. You and the seller will get sued, and you will lose. So if it's listed, we're done. That's why on your form it asks, is the house listed? However, when we get into the conversations later, you can get a lot of leads from realtors, but not listed properties, unless they're willing to release the listing. So we're dealing in FSBOs, not houses that are listed. Make sure everybody's clear on that. All right, Scott Ulmer, you want to come forth? I'd like for you to meet Scott. Hear Scott's story, and I want Scott to participate in this event as well. And as we go through these transactions, you'll hear what we really do. No seminar garbage, what we really do, good, bad, and ugly. Mistakes made, things learned. Scott, how long have you been with me at this point?
5 months.
5 months, okay. Scott came to me from Ohio. Scott's got a long history in buying properties for cash, funding them with private loans, selling them on land contract, and ultimately getting them cashed out to the tune of about, how many deals a year were you guys doing?
We were doing about 150 a year.
About 150 a year, okay. So Scott didn't know anything about this ACT stuff, totally foreign to him. Pretty house business was kind of foreign to you, right?
Yeah, most of the stuff we did was lower to middle income.
Okay. So here he comes down to Florida, and I stick him right out there in the arena just about the time this ACT stuff started. Is about right? Yeah, okay. So we were all babes in the woods on this. So we started generating leads, and it took you quite a while to get acclimated to the business, to get your first deal negotiated. It took you a little while to learn how to talk to the sellers because you were learning new language and all of that. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, when I came down here, I thought it was going to be very simple. Conceptually, this program is very simple, but the pitch, the spiel, being able to answer the seller objections, it took me a little bit longer than I anticipated, and probably a little longer than you anticipated as well. But you know, about 6-8 weeks into it, after talking to enough people and feeling comfortable, I got the hang of it, and now I'm at the point where I feel as long as I can get a seller on the phone that is willing to, you know, be flexible with terms, I can usually get the ACT deals done.
Yeah. All right. How many ACT deals are we currently doing per week, per month, whatever, Scott?
Well, we're doing 2 to 3 a week. Last week we did 3. This week we only did 1. And it's just a matter of the lead flow coming in and you know, getting on the phone. But
okay. And what's our average profit that we're getting out of the ACT deals?
Average is about $6-7 grand. We've had a couple 10s, we've had a couple 5s, but the average is right in that $6,500.
Okay. Pretty much like the Ioannidis, huh? In fact, all you have to do is one more deal per month than they do.
Okay. That's some heavy competition.
So you keep a constant tabs on that, and just understand that if they tell you they did 10, they lied. They really did more, probably. Yeah. Okay. All right. What was the hardest thing that you had to? What was the hardest hurdle you crossed when you started, in your opinion? Especially since you've been talking to a lot of students now, and you hear their same issues. What is that, you think?
Probably seller objections. I think that there's concern, obviously, with the seller as to the structure of the deal, any of the potential pitfalls, and I think that once I was able to present it in a professional fashion and address those objections, I think that was probably the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome. And once I became comfortable with that and was able to obviously convey that to the sellers, they were comfortable as well.
Okay. And the problem is actually just explaining it to them in a manner which their objections were actually answered before they even get a chance to come up with them.
Exactly. Without over-talking.
Yeah, and without over-talking. So if we want to narrow it right down to the nitty-gritty, that was probably the biggest issue. Diarrhea of the mouth.
That's it. Yeah, and you just hit a great point. In my approach to the sellers, if I can address the what the perceived objections in what I say, then they really have no questions to ask. And I've started recording myself recently and listening to myself back.
It was ugly, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was ugly in a couple of them, and but I'm trying to get better and more fluid. And again, when I've got a series of bullet points that, as long as I hit those in my presentation or my approach, there's really not a lot of objections that they have to state.
And really, it comes down to is screening the ones on the front end that are ready to do business, so that you don't get out in the field and start talking to a bunch of people that you really shouldn't even be there to begin with. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and we had to spend some time early on with our VAs making sure that they were answering or getting the questions answered that we needed. You can go through the sheet that Ron devised. Obviously, all the questions there are addressed in a fluid fashion, and it tells you right there most times whether or not you've got a prospect or a suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how about the selling side? On the selling side, where are we at right now? Because you got a bunch of houses. Because we got a bunch of bank-owned properties we just closed on. We closed on about 3 or 4 in the last 2 weeks. Yeah. And then you got a bunch of axe deals. We're going to talk about selling houses tomorrow, so we don't need to get into that right now. But what would you say the average time between the time we get control of a house and the time we put a buyer in a house, give or take?
Well, we're obviously always trying to shrink that and trying to, have our buyers lined up for the houses as soon as we get them. But usually within a couple of weeks, we have some very good activity, and some of the higher payments have taken us a little bit longer. But usually within 30 days, most of our inventory, 30 to 45 days, is moved on these axe deals.
Wow. 45 days is probably on the long side, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like you got a couple of houses right now where you got 3. I know you got one house you got 3 different applicants on.
Got two more applications last night, so on the same house.
On the same house. Yeah. So was that 5?
5.
Oh, that's nice. So we get to choose between 5 different tenant buyers on that house, and probably have that house sold.
Oh yeah.
To another investor. So, but we're responsible for putting a tenant buyer in there. So it's a matter of just building them buyers lists, which we'll talk about tomorrow, and then plugging the houses into the buyers. And not have to spend all your life scrounging up buyers. All right. Okay. Well, Scott, thank you. He's going to screen all of your deals that you guys brought in, and after lunch, when we start talking about pre-screening, I'm going to go through some of those, and we'll try to pick some off the top and give me a variety, will you?
Yep.
Some goods and some bads and some uglies, and let's see if we can turn up some deals here. How many would you say you have all together right now?
I'd say there's probably 15, 20.
Okay. That's a good start. All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Scott Ulmer. Okay, you'll hear more about VAs this afternoon. We have Elsa up here, and I think I'll have Scott back up here then. We'll talk about what we went through, get VAs, and some good, strong lessons there, and how important they are to our business as well. Scott is my entire real estate side. I'll introduce you to a couple of other folks here shortly that are here to begin doing what Scott does. And it's him, it's a VA, and it's my daughter Vicki, who occasionally decides she wants to sell houses. That's the entire real estate business we have. Okay, on page 23, there's 5 steps to success. If you guys are here, you should have heard them already. If you're listening to these CDs, this is your business plan. It is your model to go by, and applies to every business. I don't care what kind of a product or service that business sells. These 5 steps apply. They apply to my restaurant. They apply to a doctor, to an attorney, to a retail store, to a service provider, to a real estate entrepreneur, to a real estate agent, or to any other business. And these 5 steps must be effectively implemented, and do so with as little work on your part as possible, but any one of these 5 left out of place can cripple your business. And the first one is the one that cripples most people's businesses, and that is locating prospects. If you do not locate prospects, you have no business, and I don't care what business you have. Unfortunately out there, the brick and mortar businesses, the entrepreneurs out there in the world are so uneducated about, number one, locating prospects. Their whole plan is open business and they will come. Sometimes they come and sometimes they don't. Unfortunately, 8 out of 10 times they don't. because 8 out of 10 new businesses that get open are down within the first 2 years. And there's a reason they're down, likely, not always, but likely it's because they have no clue how to locate prospects for their business, and or not have the money to do anything with. But even if they had the money, they'll spend it in the wrong places and get no results. And the next thing you know, it's all advertising's fault. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with brick and mortar business owners, and I open the conversation about, well, what do you do to get people in? And the answers are just mind-boggling stupid to me. I mean, they have no idea, none. I don't know why anybody would consciously go open a business with no idea on how they're going to get business. But they do, because they're good at the thing that they're offering, product or service, and they feel that's all they have to have. Wrong-o, wrong-o, wrong-o. The thing will sit on a shelf and not get delivered unless somebody does something to attract suspects that turn into prospects that turn into buyers. I don't care what business it is. My restaurant, I have a manual about 3 inches thick of direct marketing stuff, and then we have a whole online campaign, and I will have a full-time person who does nothing but put butts in seats day in and day out, because I know without that, no restaurant's going to be successful. Regardless of the quality of the food, you've got to constantly be on people's mind and give them reasons to come into your establishment. In real estate, you who are buying and selling real estate have to have a constant flow of FSBO leads coming at you. If you do not, if you take your eye off of that ball for 1 week, now you've got to start all over, you've got to crank up the machine, you've got to fill up the pipeline, and you have a big gap with no income. Most real estate investors take their eye off of that ball way more than 1 week. You must constantly be generating leads. And fortunately for you, I'm about to tell you the easiest ways to do it. I'm going to eliminate for you the massive amount of work that we used to have to do to get a lot less results than we do today. I'm going to eliminate the need for you to spend very much capital to get all the leads you want, because no longer do you need to do all that stuff. And that's from sellers. I would also point out to you that when we're ready to sell these properties to buyers, these exact same 5 steps apply. One of them out of order, and your business is going to suffer. Number 2 is pre-screen the prospects. I'm going to get into that here after lunch, and I will tell you that is the difference between most people succeeding and failing right there. They spend all of their time trying to chase dead ends. They're trying to make people motivated, or they get 1 or 2 leads coming in, and then they spend all their life trying to figure out a way to make these people sell the property when there is no chance they're ever going to sell it to you, because you won't pay retail price and pay all cash and close next week. Most of the people who come into our life, we are not going to do business with. Does that apply to just real estate or to every business on the planet? Every business on the planet. There's a majority and there's a minority. You're always doing business with the minority. So we've got to pre-screen them, and that's what this event is about, and hopefully you're going to get better and better at that, but we've got to start with the basics and practice, practice, practice. In constructing present offers, that's also part of the pre-screening process, and fortunately, the people we're going to do business with, constructing offers is pretty easy. It's right there in front of you. There's no magic, and there's very little negotiating, really. You're explaining the facts, and they're either going to like them or not like them. The better you get explaining them, of course, the better they like them. And the scripts are all in here to help you do that. And then we got to follow up and get them to a conclusion. And that, my friends, seems to be the hardest thing for us to get students to do, which is why we want you paired up with mentors, because this is what mentors help you do more than anything else, and that is pull the trigger. Can't tell you how many people will get out there and generate leads. They'll even get on the phone and talk to sellers, and they'll get the property information sheets filled out, and the deals are right there in front of them, and everybody knows it. And then nothing happens because they won't take the next step, and that's to get out there and get that contract signed. Got to pull the trigger, or all of this is for naught. And number 5, close quickly, meaning get the contract, get the agreement. Until you get the agreement, you got nothing. You got words. You got time wasting. You got processes. You feel good about what you're doing because you see stuff happening. But if you don't get the agreement, it's all for naught. For naught, for nothing. You wasted everything. All your time, money, resources, whatever. Got to get the agreement signed. So our whole purpose of locating prospects is to get the agreement signed by a few of them. And when we get to that point, now we control this multi-thousand-dollar asset. Till we get to that point, we got nothing. We got no way to make money, no income coming in, nothing but frustration because we spent all of our wheels for nothing. All right, let's talk about locating these prospects. And as I said, this is really going to be easy for you to do. There's a few things you can do. Well, actually, there's more than a few. I used to have a book about this thick called Guerrilla Marketing. Some of you are old enough to remember. I know Ray Ritchie remembers. He's older than dirt. It was this thick. You remember Ray? 3-day event. Just cram-packed full of marketing tools. Every one of them worked. I know I created them all. You guys don't realize this, but I created most of the stuff we currently use in this industry. I don't get credit for it, nor do I care. The term ARV, I created. The term Mayo, I created. Nobody knows that, but it doesn't matter. I used to have, honestly, must have been 25 different ways to get sellers to call you or to you to contact them. I mean, we covered everything. Some of you spend a lot of money on, some of you spend very little money on, some of you spend no money on, some of it work better, some of it work not so good. Today, with all those years of experience, and especially with the advent of technology and virtual assistants, we've narrowed it down to where I don't want you doing much. And only the effective things that we know works keeps on working across North America, which includes Canada, incidentally. We do the same things in Canada we do in the United States, except we say A, just to make everybody happy up there. By the way, any Canadians in the room today besides Heather? Huh? Besides Heather? You're not a Canadian anymore. You're Floridian. All right. So, on page 25, we're going to generate leads from motivated sellers. Again, we're dealing with FSBOs, not listed properties, not bank-owned properties. We're going to call FSBOs. We're going to get that one nailed. VAs are doing it. If you want, you should run some ads. VAs can do that for you. If you want to, you can mail yellow letters. I am not covering that in here. That is covered in the green cash flow system, Pretty House cash flow system, also covered in the Quick Start Real Estate School. If you cannot get enough leads by calling FSBOs, I would submit to you, you need to fix who's calling the FSBOs. But if you still can't get enough leads, then you can always send out yellow letters and have them call Pat live and then have your VA call them. So we're going to get FSBOs one of two ways. We're going to call them or we're going to have them call us. I'm telling you right now, calling FSBOs is your number one lead generator, and you may never need to mail yellow letters. Today, we are just beginning a yellow letter campaign because I want to generate more leads because we're adding a couple of folks onto the staff. We generate a pile of these leads in the areas where we want to work in, but we're not going to stop calling FSBOs. Calling FSBOs, for most of you in this room, will get you all the leads you need. All the leads you need. And we're going to cover that when we talk about the virtual assistants later on today, because you do have to monitor that process and make sure that they're doing it and keep it going. Or, number one, locating prospects starts to fall and you don't have any leads to work on. Running ads, all of you should do, frankly. And signs, we'll get to that. And business cards. Business cards, doesn't hurt you a bit to have business cards. Should have them. But I can tell you right now, the deals you get per year on business cards is going to be dwarfed by the deals you're going to get by calling FSBOs and yellow letters if you wish. And then the last is website. Guys, you all should have a website. Do you need one to start? No. Do you have to have one to do business? No. But golly, there ought to be some place where you can drive sellers to fill in the blanks and tell you they want to sell you their house. Property information sheet should be on your website. You guys know that we can get them set up for you, or you can get your VAs to set them up. I really don't care. But you should have a website to capture sellers and another website to capture buyers. We'll touch on both of those in here. All right, so let's get into the outbound calling campaign. And that's on the next page. As far as I'm concerned, This is your number one FSBO lead acquisition tool. Calling for sale by owner ads. Now, you will find these people online and offline. Today, you will find most of them online through various websites, which there's a bunch of them in your manual, and you will find some offline. There's two places you'll find them offline. You'll find them through newsprint, like regional newspapers. For some of you, they're local daily newspapers. For vocational papers, like in Jacksonville, for example, we have military papers. We have a Jewish newspaper. We have regional papers, like when I live in Mandarin, we have a Mandarin newspaper. We have all these publications where they advertise houses for sale. You should get a handle on these publications where you live, because many of them are also online even, where you can go get the classified ads online. Know your local newspaper, your daily paper is online, and your classifieds are right there where they can get them without even getting the actual physical paper. And also offline is the signs, and people tend to ignore that one. Somebody, including you, when riding around, should be snapping a picture of a house with your cell phone with a sign in the picture so that your VA can call that number about that house. Ride around now, cell phone in hand, and snap a picture of the house. Yeah, there's the address right there on the house, and the sign's right in front of it, and frankly, none of that matters anyway till the VA calls them, does it? Hello? Do you need the address to have the VA call? No, you do not. You need the phone number that's on the sign. And so while you're riding around, get pictures. While your kids are riding around, while your relatives are riding around, create some kind of incentive plan. You bring me a picture of a for sale by owner, and if I buy it, I'll give you $250. Whatever it takes. People like to do it. They want to get actively involved anyway. And it's certainly you. Instead of taking the major highways home, now start driving through neighborhoods looking for FSBOs. Take pictures of them, turn them over to your VA. Look at there. With the gadget you got today, take picture, press email, goes right to VA. VA calls, sends you back property information sheets. And guys, you can make a really darn good living if you didn't do anything but call signs in front of houses. But it does require a human actually copying down that phone number. All right. Calling ads is real simple.